Former FBI Director James Comey has finally been indicted as of Thursday evening, and he was expected to turn himself in this morning. As far as we see, that has not happened yet, but we will be staying tuned to see if that will actually happen. So on this episode of Filibusted Headlines, I'm going to dive into some of these indictment details, what we see here. We're going to talk about what it's actually for and why this is a big deal, and why this might not be dismissed. And so we're going to talk about some importance there. And this is all related to Crossfire Hurricane and the Trump-Russia hoax and all this kind of stuff that we need to talk about. We're going to even talk about Obama a little bit here. So I'm Ryan Howard. Welcome to Filibusted Headlines. Let's dive right in. Now, this has been quite interesting. I'm going to go through the timeline as well on this and just kind of, let's go ahead and back up a little bit here. Maybe we'll start with this timeline. If you go back to July 2016, that's when the FBI opened the Crossfire Hurricane, which was a counterintelligence investigation into the possible coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia and to steal the election. And so what is interesting is, of course, there are different countries that try to influence campaigns and try to influence elections. And Russia, I believe, did. But the question is not whether they did. The question is whether or not the Trump campaign colluded and coordinated with them. And we're going to find out that definitely was not the case. We've already seen that get blown up, and we're seeing hopefully the first of many indictments coming down with this. But going into the summer and fall of 2016, the investigation expanded, and the FBI began taking individual looks at people like George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and Michael Flynn. And so you probably remember all of those names for different reasons. But in September 2016, the Steele dossier was delivered to the FBI, and that added another stream of intelligence into the mix. And you can see all of these things that we know were ridiculous and not based in reality starting to add up here, and hopefully coming back to bite whoever was in on it. So March 20th, 2017, so the following year, James Comey publicly confirms in a testimony before the House Intelligence Committee that the FBI is investigating, quote, links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether or not there was coordination. May 9th, 2017, Trump fires Comey as the FBI director, obviously not satisfied with his performance there. And in May 17th, 2017, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein appointed Robert Mueller as a special counsel to take over the Russia-related investigations. So you can see a lot of those big names there and a lot of just ridiculous untruths, you could say, things that were not based in reality. And so this is very consequential because it really set the tone that shaped the entire first presidency of Donald Trump. And so the FBI director, if the FBI director misled Congress, we're going to talk about what he actually, let's get into that first, because I think it's important that we understand really what is actually being alleged here. So this is actually from the justice.gov website. So this is, it's happening, and this is going to be quite interesting to see it play out. But as we go here, I want a few highlights here. And so they're basically accusing him of making a false statement before Congress and obstruction in a criminal case. So that's pretty straightforward. He declared his innocence. So you probably saw the video already. He said, "Oh, let's go to trial. Let's do it." Okay, of course he's going to do that. But he's actually being charged in relation to that testimony that he gave to the Senate Judiciary Committee on September 30th back in 2020. So kind of crazy or interesting that, the Biden administration did not do anything about this. But during this hearing, actually, Comey told the panel that he, quote, had not authorized someone at the FBI to be an anonymous source in the news reports regarding the FBI investigation into concerning person one. So they redacted some information here, but basically giving false and misleading statements. So the DOJ alleged that Comey knew that was not true. And so this is not a simple thing where they kind of set up a way to get a person caught up in their own words, where they're just sort of unknowingly not telling something that's true. This is a direct, blatant, on its face lie. And so that is the issue that we're talking about here. And it's about a very high profile case that was actually about whether or not a sitting president had colluded with another country to win the election. This is a very big deal. And so those also included investigation into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server and an investigation into allegations of the collusion between then candidate Donald Trump's campaign and Russia. So, well, Yeah, I think we need to talk more about Hillary Clinton and all that, but we'll leave that be for now. So Comey told Grassley, so Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa, that he never acted as an anonymous source or authorized anyone else to do so, regarding either the Clinton or Trump investigation. And so during the 2020 hearing, Comey reaffirmed those earlier claims, which the DOJ alleges that Comey knew was untrue. So charged with making material, false, fictitious, or fraudulent statements or representation. And so these are the 2 U.S. codes of what he was indicted on. And corruptly endeavored to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which the investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. So pretty obvious and straightforward here what was going on. There was another one that basically did not get indicted on, and that just means 12 of the 16 jurors did not have 12 or more of the 16 jurors that were involved with this. So, I mean, think about this. This is not just some judge's opinion. This was a jury of 16 peers that said, yes, indicted. And so there's some responses from the Trump administration saying that no one is above the law. And so, we're really kind of tired of just waiting. We would like to see some justice done here. But, Pam Bondi spoke up, Kash Patel spoke up. They're all basically just saying, yeah, no one's above the law. So hopefully that is what we will find out, is that no one is above the law. But we'll see what comes out of this. I did notice that it was peaceful and there was no raids. If you remember back in January 2019, Roger Stone, federal agents did a raid on his Fort Lauderdale home. And that was part of the Mueller investigation. Michael Cohen, he was Trump's former personal lawyer. In April 2018, there was an FBI raid on his home as well. And in August 2022, the FBI carried out a raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. And so, what I'm going to get into is that what the left is saying and how the media is trying to frame this. And I want to talk about that in just a minute. But first, the timing on this really is no accident. This is actually filed just days before a 5-year statute of limitations expired. And so that would have expired, I believe, on Tuesday. So literally the week before that expired. And so that suggests some serious urgency here. The government didn't want to let him escape on a technicality. So, you really can't move these things forward too fast, because if you do, then they can escape on a technicality. And you don't want to do that. But you also want to wait to the last minute. Well, we certainly waited to the last week here. And so this basically, there's an arraignment scheduled on October 9th. And so that's where he's expected to enter a plea. And so we'll see what comes out of that. But it could be, we'll talk about what the next steps could be from there. But, I do want to say that, lying under oath for just sort of like a local investigation is a very big deal. Like a little local investigation coming under oath, that's a big deal. Okay. But lying in an investigation into a sitting U.S. president in a case that involves national security, foreign interference, our actual election integrity, that has another level of gravity to it, don't you think? I mean, it's basically the head of the FBI would have. This means he misled the American people during one of the most sensitive inquiries in history, saying that a sitting president worked with a foreign government to get himself elected. So, yeah, kind of a big deal. That, like I said, this probe shaped Trump's entire presidency. That's what they talked about. And then finally it blew up and was like, oh, never mind. I guess that was based in nothing. And so, okay, let's just move on. Well, now we're not going to be moving on. We're hoping and praying that justice is done. We know ultimately God brings justice, but we have people here on earth that are put in place to bring justice with the mechanisms that we have elected them, and they have then appointed others to execute that justice in the Justice Department. So the FBI director, this would have been the entire foundation of the Trump-Russia probe. It was the FISA warrants, the surveillance, the use of the Steele dossier, and I mentioned Obama. And so obviously some of that happening during the campaign of Trump to try and do all this stuff, which we know was based in false information. And so all those things, those buzzwords now I mentioned, the FISA warrants, the Steele dossier, and surveillance, and those sorts of things. So that means years of political turmoil could have been fueled simply by a misrepresentation of at the top, the very top. And these are supposed to be institutions that we're trusting. Well, praise God, we all seem to have a more realistic view of those institutions now based on what has been coming out and what we're seeing. But let's move on to the media spin here. So we have the media spin versus reality. So they're trying to say that this is Trump's revenge, and they're trying to say he's weaponizing the DOJ and saying that it's all politics. It's all politics. He just is going after this guy. But you see the case I just laid out. This is very consequential. I mean, like, it's not a little thing. This is a very big deal. And if we want to have confidence restored in these institutions, well, we need to see some action taken. If they say no one is above the law, well, someone could get 5 years in prison for this. So I wonder if James Comey could get 5 years in prison for this, for lying. I mean, so I just really want to be clear. This isn't some little cute little lie. This is a misleading of a serious investigation into a sitting president, for which then Trump was there. Remember those things called impeachments and indictments? Yeah. So this is very consequential. And I mentioned it's under Obama. And so I'll get into that in just a second here. But the reality is that this isn't about politics. This is about lying to Congress and obstruction. And that would, like I said, land any regular everyday person in court and likely in prison. And so if they're not above the law, well, let's see what's going to happen. So what's going to happen next? Well, there's going to be court proceedings. So I mentioned October 9th. That's going to be coming out. And so that's the arraignment. And so that's where they will formally hear the charges, and he'll enter a plea, guilty, not guilty. And there will be probably pre-trial motions where his lawyers will probably try to get a dismissal, and they'll probably try to argue that it's just politically motivated and it doesn't have any merit. But that's we're going to hopefully find out that they're not going to accept that. And so then if that's not dismissed, it would go forward to discovery and trial. So prosecutors need to bring the evidence of the false statements or obstruction, and the defense will challenge the credibility and intent and the legal basis of that as well. And so they're trying to probably also say that there's constitutional protections and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, for me, and when we talk about Obama and immunity and all this kind of stuff as well, it's absurd because, you know, just because you're in an official position doesn't mean you get to go rogue and do whatever you want to do. That is absolutely not the case. There's no protections of that for that. Now, possible outcomes I mentioned: case dismissed. So the judge just rules that the indictment is defective or unconstitutional or just doesn't have evidence. There could be a plea deal, which is less likely with a person like Comey, but prosecutors could offer reduced penalties in exchange for admissions. We see a lot of that with lower profile people where they force them to do a guilty plea, even though they are not guilty and they know they're not guilty, but they do it to get a lesser consequences, and so that they don't have to go to jail, or maybe they don't have to be spend all their money defending themselves. So there could also be a conviction, and that would just result in fines or prison, and that would depend on the actual statutes, which I listed there. Or it could be an acquittal, which a jury would find insufficient evidence if it actually went to a trial. So some potential outcomes there. We really need to see this moving forward and not just let it rest. We have had too much of that, and I think we're all are tired of being disappointed and seeing things not move forward the way they should be. So there will also be potentially additional fallout for the institutions and political fallout. So if Congress is going to continue investigating and following up on these things, you know, obviously the left is going to keep saying the DOJ is being weaponized. And it's just so ironic. I mean, you see the left, it's almost like you can see, if you want to know what playbook they're running, look at what they claim that the right is doing. That's basically, they're just opening up their playbook and saying, this is what we're doing, but we're going to pretend like the right's doing it, which is absurd. And that's exactly what we see here. So we should expect appeals regardless of the outcome, but hopefully there will be further indictments coming. I mentioned, there was a press conference, I think the last day or two, with DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard and the press secretary for President Trump, and someone asked about Obama with this, and so the question is, what about Obama? And then they basically are saying, well, we're going to go forward with whatever is there, and whatever needs to be brought to light, we need to move forward with it. And so if you think about it, Obama, his administration was in power when this was happening, this probe back in 2015 during the campaign. And that investigation that began in 2016, that was really during Obama's final year in office. And so his national security team, including the FBI Director James Comey, the CIA Director John Brennan, and DNI James Clapper, they briefed him regularly about the Russian interference. And so decisions about surveillance, FISA warrants, intelligence sharing were all made under the Obama administration's oversight. And I think you may have heard, like I did, that intelligence agencies came to him and said, we don't have anything. And he basically said, I don't like that. Allegedly, I don't like that. Go back and bring me a new report. And then voila, they came out with the new report and open investigation. And now go ahead and put those tapping on Trump's campaign and spying on the campaign. So you see, this is just all absolutely absurd, and it is infuriating to see this. And I'm going to keep saying it. We're tired of the perception of justice coming and then nothing happening. And so we're sick and tired of it, and we're paying attention and we're watching. And so we're ready to see something actually come out of this, and not to have this be botched on some technicality or some ridiculous reason that they don't actually move forward with handcuffs or fines or whatever. And so, okay, dug through this in here. I wanted to mention this. There was a case about it was called Brogan versus the United States. And so if somebody just says no, is that the same as pleading the Fifth Amendment? And well, I'll just summarize this. See, this is James Brogan. He was a Union officer, and federal agents came to him and asked him whether he was involved in making illegal payment or received illegal payments from a company. And he just directly lied and just said no. And even though he had received the payments, but he didn't file a false document. He didn't cover up with evidence or cover up evidence. He just denied it out loud with his words. And so the legal question is, should there be an exculpatory no exception? And so that means, like, if all you do is say no to protect yourself, should it not count as a crime? The saying of no, or basically the lying. And it's kind of like the Fifth Amendment, pleading the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment is you're not going to give information that's going to incriminate yourself, or potentially give the appearance or lead to an incrimination of yourself. And the Supreme Court ruling rejected the idea that explicitly saying no to something is the same thing as pleading the Fifth Amendment. And they ruled that a simple no counts as a violation of 18 U.S. Code 1001. And if it's a knowingly false statement and material to the investigation, which means it's consequential, like it matters. Like if it was no and it actually was yes, and that would make a difference in the investigation, that's called material to the investigation. So in plain terms, there's no just say no loophole when you're lying to federal investigators. So plead the Fifth Amendment. If that's the case, hopefully you're not being investigated by federal investigators. But we need to see justice done. So what that means is that I mentioned that, if an ordinary person who lies to the FBI or Congress, even with a one-word denial of something that they know was false, all right, so the word no, 2 letters, 1 syllable, no, 1 word, that person can get up to 5 years in prison under Penal Code 1001 that I mentioned. Okay, so just let that sit. 1 word, no, low level, inconsequential, maybe just involving one company, a union. Okay, no, doesn't count. Can have up to 5 years in prison. Okay, so the court basically says if you don't want to incriminate yourself, you have to stay silent, which is invoking the Fifth Amendment, but cannot lie even in the simplest way with 1 word. And so in Comey's case, he was accused of lying to Congress about the leaks, the authorization of those leaks, and anonymous, and whether he did it himself or whether he authorized somebody else to do it. Obviously, they've got evidence to show that he knew that was false, and that's why bringing this case. So it proves that this Brogan case versus the U.S. proves that the government can take any false information seriously, and there's no small lie defense. And so, although I will say, when we look at what this is all the technical stuff, this is all the right answers. Okay, so that means that if evidence shows that Comey lied, the law is very clear. Okay, and like everyday people have gone to prison for less. And so he needs to have the harshest penalties, because he was in a position of trust for the public, and that's betraying trust. Like I would even say that could be treason. Like that's absurd. That is absolutely betraying trust of the country and against the United States. But if you remember, we saw the FBI make up things when it came to Hillary Clinton, and Comey comes to mind. Geez, I don't know. That name's Comey's there somewhere. I remember that they said Hillary Clinton deleted these emails, deleted evidence. I think she actually beat up her hard drive with a hammer or something, or maybe she bleached it. I think that, believe it or not, that's not a jug of something you pour on the hard drive. And I think that what he and the FBI at the time said was, okay, she's kind of being acquitted of this, but they literally said, but people should not interpret that to mean that if anybody else did the same thing, that they would also be acquitted. Like literally those words. Like I wish I'm only thought of that now. If I had thought of that, I would actually look this up and saw the actual quote. And then it went in, and instead of saying, okay, look, if you are at the top, if you have top secret clearances, okay, and I got interviewed for somebody. I have a friend that was in the military, and he got a top secret clearance. And so I don't know who it was, intelligence, somebody from the government came to my work and sat with me in a room and grilled me about like the 10 years that I knew this person, and went into all the details. And then they had a final funny question about, has he ever been involved in trying to overthrow the U.S. government? And I was like, what? No, I got that one right. Well, okay. What happens at the top level when you have secret top level, top security clearances? I'm not an expert in this, but it does not matter your motivation, and it does not matter if it was an accident. If you shared information, even accidentally, it doesn't matter. It was shared. And so you violated that. And that you can be held liable for that. It's a serious issue. And so if you look at Hillary Clinton, what they did, and I don't remember the wording exactly, but they basically said, well, yeah, she did this, but she didn't mean to do it. It was an oversight. And so it wasn't her intention to do this. And so therefore, we're going to let her off. Like what? Like you violating your oath of office doesn't matter whether it's intentional or not, or if you had a warm heart about it, like you did it or you didn't do it. Like that's absurd. And so, perhaps we're going to see the truth come to roost here, and we're going to see that hopefully we will actually go forward and see justice done in this case. And we really want to see others go forward as well, and being with indictments, like actual indictments. And this is not about a vendetta. This is not about revenge. This is not about anything. This is even the people on the right that have done these things. They need to be held accountable. Get them out of office. Get them out of their elected positions. Get them out of their comfy, let's go write books and let's go do whatever we want to do now and be a political consultant and do all this kind of stuff, and get them in handcuffs. Like we have had enough of this. This is absurd. Like it's time to have some justice done here. And so I hope that we will have a lot more than just talk from this Justice Department, because they've been doing a lot of talking, and we've seen some disappointments, and I hope we don't see a disappointment on this one. What do you guys think? Are you with me? Do you think we're going to see something come with this? Let me know in the comments. I want to know what you guys think about this. Am I right? What did we miss? What else do you guys think? I mean, this all ties together in quite an interesting narrative. And what we need is the conservatives, the actual biblical conservatives, not the fake establishment right. We need people in our elected officials and in the Justice Department and Trump to actually move forward regardless of how this is characterized. I do not care. The left, it does not matter if you do everything perfect 100%. The left will make up things to characterize it however they want to. And so we've got to look past that, forget about it, not be sidetracked, and stay in the race. Okay, it's like we're running around the track, and we hear all these people in the crowd yelling and screaming, and then you just stop the race. You go up in the bleachers and you address the people in the crowd like, well, you just lost the race. Like, no, forget that. Stay in the race. Let the media do what they're going to do. Obviously, Trump has the media playbook. He pretty much wrote the media playbook. And so just go forward and let it happen. Let the truth come out, and we the people will see. We the people will see. Are you with me? All right. Well, hey, I think that wraps it up. Thank you for joining us. Look for other episodes coming out, and we'll be back live next Monday. And stay tuned. We're going to see what happens on this one. All right. Have a great weekend. God bless, and we'll see you next time.